Jack Musk, thank you so much for joining me for Beyond the Pitch. So you grew up near Twickenham, correct?
I did, yeah, so about 20 minutes from Twickenham.
What was that like?
It was good actually. We live in a town called Thames Ditton, sort of 20 minutes from London on the train. Okay. Sort of classic suburban town really.
So when you grew up, did you talk about money at all? Was that something that you would chat about with your mum and dad?
Well yeah, I think it's always something, not necessarily be like a focal point of conversation, but both my parents worked. So it was sort of an obvious thing to address at points, and sort of as getting older and older, with pocket money coming into things and other little jobs every now and then, sort of what to do with the money. And my mum set up a savings account for me when I was young, so then like certain birthday money would go into that.
So growing up, did your parents teach you anything about spending or saving that you feel like you've carried on to now that you are a professional athlete and making your own salary?
Yeah, definitely. I think what I touched on earlier is like when I had birthdays and stuff, so my grandparents especially, being old fashioned, they'd always give me like a cheque or something like for my birthday, and my mum always encouraged me to sort of put the cheques from grandparents to one side, for example, and so then over the years that would build up, and that sort of instilled in me a sort of saving mentality. And then obviously leading on to now, when I first got paid a couple of years ago professionally, obviously it's the excitement of seeing the money come in, and then it's sort of trying to maintain the temptation to just spend it all in
Absolutely.
that month. And it took a few conversations with my parents and sort of friends and my friends around us to sort of convince each other that it would be the right thing to do, and we'd thank each other one day for saving some of it.
So speaking of that, you know, when you first did start getting paid professionally, was there anything that you had your mind on that, you know, I'm going to reward myself for all my hard work and I'm going to buy this thing?
It's not necessarily one thing that came to mind, but it was also almost just the contrast from going to being at school, having little to no money of my own really, to then suddenly having money in an account which was mine, and sort of the excitement that brought. So I think it was probably just silly things which I bought, like going out shopping for no reason and buying stuff I wouldn't normally buy, or eating out at a restaurant when I could have easily eaten at home, and just sort of adapting to sort of a lifestyle of having a little bit more money than I did before. Yeah. But I feel like something now that sort of settled into it, sort of understood the purpose of having the money. I've sort of got into a better routine, and us as a group of boys similar to my age have all sort of managed together to sort of rein ourselves in a bit and sort of be a bit more sensible with it. Yeah.
Do you find in the changing room, is there ever talk about personal finance or saving versus spending? Is that something that comes up at all?
I mean, in the changing room environment maybe like, occasionally, but specifically with the sort of academy boys that I'm with, not so much. The financial stuff we talk about is sort of the struggles of like sort of trying to find somewhere to rent around here, because obviously it's quite an expensive area, and we're paying because we're now suddenly paying for things like car insurance, cars, phones,
things you would have never
exactly
considered
things we wouldn't have even thought about
Absolutely,
before.
Yeah.
So we'd sort of realised trying to manage our new overheads, which we weren't used to before.
Overheads, that's a good word.
Thank you. And then when you hear the more senior boys talk about it, it's different. They're talking about houses and mortgages and families and everything like that. So I think we're in a sort of more fortunate position where we can be a bit more like selfish with our money. So like what's ours, we have the power to sort of choose what we want to spend our money on. We don't have to worry about kids or wives or
those things.
Yeah, exactly.
I know that obviously you're so young and you maybe have not thought about this at all, but have you thought even a little bit about life after rugby?
Yeah, I mean, it's the classic sort of cliche that sort of everyone who's a bit older always encourages you to think about life after rugby, and when you are young you're quite short-sighted and it's quite hard to imagine sort of yourself in 10 years time and what you might do then. But I do try and think about it, and that's why I think when we speak to the other young guys in the club that it is important to sort of save what you can, because rugby is not a sport where you can retire at the age of 30 and be set for life like football, for example. So you've got to find something to do after the sport, whether you go into coaching or into a completely different world in business or something like that. But I haven't got anything sort of set in stone as a plan, but it's something I'm trying to develop as I carry on my career to sort of find sort of my path with after rugby.
Very cool. Thank you so much for chatting with me.
No worries at all. Thank you very much.